Welcome to another episode of Anime for Schmucks, the podcast where we expose well-meaning idiots to weird anime and extract their takes from them in any way we possibly can. With me today is my good friend Zach.
Hello.
And my good friend Paige.
The wife. No, hi.
Wife of Zach. Now, today we watched a newer anime, one that I've heard a lot about on all the Tumblrs and Twitters.
Which is surprising because the amount of tumblage and Twitterage, well, I don't do any Twitterage, but the amount of tumblage I do, I had never even heard the name. Somehow I just lived under the anime rock for too long and just completely missed it.
How about you, Zach? Did you have any awareness of this before?
Zero.
Okay. And I was only familiar with mostly by reputation. It had kind of an infamous one that is wholly justified after having sat and watched the entire series. Now, everybody knows what the show is, if you can read, and we've actually all watched it already, but here's a theme song if for some reason people at home like to play along. Okay, enough of that.
Oh, but it's so pretty.
It's not a bad...
It's actually a good OP.
It is. Which is a shame because it's attached to
piece of shit.
this.
A terrible show. But
Yeah, I guess now you know how we feel about it.
All right. Without further ado, let's go ahead and dive headfirst into Darling in the Franxx.
Oh my god. Who should go first?
Well, so the show itself did not really give a prologue. It did not tell us anything about what was going on. It was one of those throw you headfirst in and you kind of have to figure it out as you go. But they didn't let you figure it out. They just gave you absolutely nothing. So we have our own prologue written by...
This is written by Dan.
Yes, Dan.
Let's see if I can get through it.
And I think it'll bring everybody up to speed.
Yeah, it should.
This really should have been the title crawl at the start of the show.
Let me get you a little music.
Okay, fantastic.
Set the mood.
Awesome. In the not-too-distant future, mankind has used up all of its precious lava. Only that it turns out that made alien dinosaurs living under the planet mad at us. So mankind built a fleet of weird BDSM robots powered by miners to fight them. Now the fate of humanity is in the hands of a bunch of horned out teenagers. At first we were fucked. Now we're just Franxxed.
I think that does it.
That covers it.
Yeah. Dan did the show perfect justice in that. It's,
all right.
Really no exaggeration.
I'm going to go ahead and get us started.
Fantastic.
Darling in the Franxx begins as confusingly as it persists and how it ends. You are thrown into the lives of the two protagonists. Hiro, who is your casual, sort of boring as hell anime protagonist, who wants to learn how to pilot robots better in a world where piloting giant robots seems to be the bee's knees. And the dual antagonist and love interest, 02, is a weird, horny alien clone girl.
Literally horny. She has horns.
She is, yeah.
This is true.
Who either wants to boff Hiro all the time or suck the life force out of him. It's extremely confusing.
A bit of both.
All right. First episode.
Fuck the life force out of him.
Fuck the life force out of him. All right. First episode, they throw us into this, dystopic, super space fascist, post-apocalyptic Earth. 02 shows up. Some shenanigans happen where they have to fight a race of beings called Klaxosaurs.
Which are adorable.
Yeah, we were Team Klaxosaur from the start because they were awesome.
they were confusing because they're too cute
Yeah.
or too confusing looking.
Right.
And they never seemed to be out for blood. They just seemed to be like going about their business, just living life, and then we come and screw them up in our giant robots.
Just scampering to and fro.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah. If there were a title crawl that was just kind of formulating in my mind during the first few episodes, even though I know that this is not what the show was intending to convey, it was something along the lines of giant, gentle creatures known as klaxosaurs roam the earth peacefully. Humans got bored and made giant fuckbots to fight them. And that's kind of what it unintentionally came across as. In fact, I think to us three from the start. But anyway.
Now, this is the second time the term fuckbots have come into play. And we're going to approach that right now because the first episode of Darling in the Franxx is a complete fake out, in my opinion. Just to set you up for the big reveal in episode 2, which I'm going to hand over to Zach or Paige to explain.
Okay, so first episode we basically went over. The second episode, we have no idea what these things they're piloting are or how they pilot. They don't show the pilot's chair. They don't show any of that normal stuff that they show in other animes from the get-go. They kind of hold back. And in the second episode, we realize why. It's because it is basically a man sitting in a chair with 2 handles to control his robot, and a woman sitting in front of him. Not even a woman, a child, a girl, kind of crawling doggy style in front of him to be the robot, to be one with the robot so that the guy can pilot the robot. And he basically like injects his mind being into her ass, and that powers it up.
And the stronger the sexual attraction and connection between the boy and girl, the more powerful the robot.
Yep.
I feel like we buried the lead, though, because we forgot to explain where the handles that the boy pilot...
Oh, right.
The handles are attached to the right and left...
Well, think about where love handles
butt
would
cheek
be.
Of the...
Yeah, it's where love handles are if you're a larger person.
It's such a... And there's a TV screen, like, on the back of the girl's head.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Their hoodie comes down and reveals a ballsack-looking screen of jizz juice loading as this robot powers up.
H.R. Geiger would take one look at that and says, "Guys, you're being too obvious." That's how screwed up it is, and that's how much of a shock it was to get when we got to this.
Yep.
And I know you were mentioning his name, but HR in any company would have so many problems with this show.
Oh my god. Absolutely. Absolutely.
I mean, these are children in fuckbots. That's all you need.
It is not subtle.
And it was the most, and we'll definitely probably be getting into this again later when we talk about just overall issues with the show and weird contrast throughout. It all just seemed like this very skeevy, contrived situation that excused putting children in these like compromised looking positions. It was very, very
Thinly veiled sexual predator.
Yes, and no matter how incredibly seriously the show was taking itself, and it was always very kind of dreary and pretentious and moody, ultimately it was just fan service TNA masquerading as like, oh, like, you know, sexual repression should be alleviated, and yeah, it was just so many things were wrong.
So one thing we failed to mention is that, and the show failed to mention for a good while, is that these children are raised without knowledge of the world, knowledge of sexual awareness, knowledge of kissing or couples or feelings.
It's a Logan's Run kind of setup.
Yes.
Yeah.
And like I said, every single opportunity the show takes is to get these kids back inside the weird sex bots.
Which, ironically, throughout the show, there's a lot less robotness and robot fighting than I would expect out of a robot show.
Yep. In fact, in order to make two of my main criticisms, I have to go back to JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. Ultimately, at the end of our first episode, I gave JoJo a recommendation. I said, this show is so different while being made up of all these inspirations, and it's just so, it owns being bizarre. It's in the title. And it's so goofy, and it doesn't take itself too seriously. And at moments where it seems to be taking itself seriously, it does it in this completely way, way, way over the top way that it's fun, and it's goofy and ridiculous and awesome. This show was very weird content and very strange, but it took itself so seriously that there was just this weird contrast going on all the time. And second, in our last episode, I mentioned that the one lone female character in the season 1 of JoJo was woefully underwritten. However, after having seen Darling in the Franxx, which is such a weird title, and not much indication that it's of what any of its content is, the woman in JoJo appears now unusually dignified. Because, wow, these female characters were bad.
It's a large cast. I mean, half of it women. Mm-hmm. Young girls, which is, God, so flippin' creepy.
It's so creepy.
They look 12, but that could be anything in an anime, but they never specify their age, which really bugged me, because, you could pretend that they just look young and then you can fuck them, or you can pretend that they're actually kids and fuck them. Ugh.
And all the while, we're drip-fed clues about how the sinister society is using them to forward their own agenda, only to learn that it's pretty stupid.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, they had a couple twists and turns that were just crap. They weren't. I mean, they were surprising because you're just like, wait, what? Where did this came out of the blue? They gave no allusion to it, but it wasn't like, oh, whoa, my mind is blown. It was just like, why? Why did this happen?
Yeah. It's a largely joyless affair.
Yeah.
Now, Dan finished the show.
Yes.
I got almost to the end because I was like, I'm just going to marathon this shit on my way to the podcast. So what I did was we watched like 4 or 5 episodes together.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And then I, being the researcher I am, I was like, okay, I'm just going to look it up. I don't give a shit. Read the whole story, and I was like, okay. But then I was like, okay, some people really love the show, and there has to be a reason for it. So I go on Tumblr, and of course everybody's like, oh, the romance, and everything's great. And I'm like, okay, cute pictures, cute gifs. I'll give this shit a shot. So I decided to marathon as much as I could.
The romance? People are into the romance?
They are. They the 2 main characters, Pinky and the Brain. Their love story about how they were, how they met as kids and they're together now and they have this good dynamic. Which, granted, they have a more natural relationship dynamic than most animes, but it's the idea that's good. The action, whatever the word is, the
execution?
Yes, thank you. The execution of that was just so lacking, and it just had so much potential. And I think fandom has a way to take something with potential and actually make it good in their mind, but it wasn't there.
I think anybody talking up this romance is definitely injecting a lot of their own, perspective into it, because I don't see it.
No
I saw a
way.
little bit of it coming from a girl's perspective, and the shonen that I watched as a little girl, and all the, like, you know, marriage and romance and all that stuff I grew up with. I thought it was cute. I do like those two together, but they put it in a wrong world, a wrong scenario, and any good ideas they had, they started with, and then just it fell so flat.
Yeah, there was one part of the show that I thought had potential. So Dan finished the whole show. Paige watched most of it. I saw the first 4 or 5 episodes, and then when I'd come home from work, if Paige was watching it, I'd kind of drift in and out.
So basically, in and out is the way to watch the show. I'll give you that. You probably watched it the best possible way.
Appreciated. And also, I would unintentionally, and this is not normal for me, I would unintentionally just fall asleep during a lot of moments.
Your brain was trying to escape.
My brain was trying to
during
escape.
the third or fourth episode that we were watching together for the podcast, you wandered so much that we were like looking through our DVDs to find something you thought was missing.
That's right.
Did he miss anything, though, really?
No.
All right. I think we need to jump back into
Okay.
the meat and potatoes of Darling in the Franxx.
All right.
The T and the A of Darling in the Franxx.
Okay.
So, sorry.
So it's a large cast.
Oh, it's a large
Yeah.
cast.
It centers around a group of teenagers called Squad 13, and they pilot their own Franxx, which resemble very strange, feminine, doll-like robots.
I did not like the design of the robots. I'm like, if you're gonna go for over-sexualization and fuckbots, don't go for, like, cutesy, kawaii-faced, hourglass figure.
They were out of place. It's a grimdark world, and these kind of, like,
And the colors were way too bright.
candy-coated.
Yeah,
It's
literally.
very weird. Very strange. Yeah.
So all the B and C stories come from these other kids who, thrown in together, to be a slapdash bunch of friends and comrades.
And here's the thing. At first, they're the only ones you know about. You think, oh, this is basically how it is for everybody. And then throughout the show, they're like, no, these guys were special. Everybody else is different. And I'm like, you could have, if you told us that at the beginning, maybe we would have more interest in said characters. They didn't really set it up in a way that I wanted to be invested in them.
Yeah, that's never elaborated on why this group is different, apart from 02 showing up and, kind of horn-dogging her way around.
I disagree with that in that they're saying, well, this is going to be our test subject group, so we're not going to give them emotion dehancers and stuff and see where it goes. But, yeah, I only know that just because
I must have zoned out.
I was trying to understand. Why they did anything and what the twist was and exactly why. And that was
there's a twist.
Yeah, and it was a very... Okay, so if anybody who is listening has played Nier Automata, you will understand what I mean by what the fuck twist, I need to go read about this. For those of you who want to play, don't listen to me for like the next, 2-3 minutes.
In fact, actually, if you don't mind if I interrupt real quick, I think that in order to get into a lot of our main criticisms, we're probably going to go into spoiler territory. So
I'm okay with that.
Yeah, and don't see the show anyway. The people who want to see the show, they're going to see the show. I almost made Paige spew her drink onto the microphone, which wouldn't have been good. Yeah.
I'm going to turn and spat on you.
Yeah.
Love you.
Love you too. As Hewitt said about JoJo, and this was just his opinion, but if you plan on watching JoJo, stop here. I'm not talking about the podcast. Stop here. I'm not going to go that far, but the people who want to see Darling in the Franxx, they're going to seek it out. They're going to watch it. Anyone else?
We can't stop them.
Yeah.
Okay, so back to the video game that has nothing to do with this anime. Oh, it does. Now I can give the spoiler. It has the super twist where instead of the, what are they called? Like robot people. No, it's the bad robots versus the androids. and the androids are protecting the human race. But then they throw in this twist like, oh, the human race is actually dead, and the robots aren't actually bad. They're just doing what they're programmed to do, and the androids aren't protecting anyone. And it's so convoluted, and it's just, people are like, it's a mind-blowing twist. But it's not. It's just, so the reason for everything you're doing doesn't exist, and there's just no satisfaction to the ending. It's just like, everything is sad, everything is bloody, everyone is dead. This show has a very similar twist in that it doesn't satisfy any curiosity. It doesn't satisfy any craving for knowledge. It pulls the same thing like, oh, humans are actually just kind of slaves for other people. Here's some aliens that are going to come down. They actually were invading from the start. And the bad guys, the Klaxosaurs, were actually these boffy little tiny creatures who are just like, we live on Earth. Why the hell are you taking all our lava?
It all comes back to lava.
All comes back to
Sex
lava.
and lava.
Sex lava.
That
Yep.
would have been a better title.
Sex lava.
Yeah.
Yep.
Also, no care was put into, like, giving the audience a clue about this possible ending.
Oh, it was such a flip.
This twist at all. No little breadcrumbs, nothing. It was just, I was looking away from the screen for 1 minute, and then they were fighting aliens. I was
Yep.
like, what is this?
Yep. And the thing is, they lead up to this. They don't lead up to this, but they have these episodes that are just this long slug of like, oh, life in the mansion, trying to understand sex and sexuality. What's a kiss?
It gets very Blue Lagoon.
And it goes so long into that you're thinking, okay, this is how they're going to reveal stuff. It's going to be a long slog. This is going to be drawn out. That's fine if they do it right.
No.
Oh, no, wait, what, aliens?
You mentioned the pacing issues.
Yes, so many pacing issues. They were going either too fast or too slow. The stories that they were going on, they would start a story and you'd be like, oh, well, maybe this is interesting. And they'd get like up to a point and then they'd be like, JK, we're going to follow this lesbian and talk to her for like a couple minutes. And they were like, oh, well, a lesbian, that's great. Maybe that'll make the robot work differently. Oh, no, it doesn't. She can't work with other girls because the other girls aren't gay, and yet she's still able to go back and work as a robot with a man.
Yeah, they never mix that up.
Yeah, they try to do the women robot because she asked, because she doesn't like guys, and it failed, so they threw her back with a guy, and they never cover the fact that she should still be struggling to be in the robot with a guy. They just like let it go.
It's just powered by the dudes, boner. It's a boner drive.
And the thing is, he had a boner for the other chick.
Yeah.
So I don't even know.
Sex and Lava or Boner Drive, I think, would have been the better titles.
I like
for
Boner
Drive. Yeah, kind of my own sort of remaining thoughts on the show. One thing I'm not sure I actually mentioned earlier was like with JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, if there's one thing I wish I could have just maybe revised how I put it last episode, was I kind of accidentally worded something as I give it a mild recommendation, and then I turned it into, no, I give it a full-on recommendation. And part of the reason why is that JoJo, nothing about it was mild. It owned being bizarre. This show had this like weird, like being tepid, depressed, brooding. It just had this like strange downer
It took itself
tone.
so seriously.
So seriously.
It had an American television feel.
Oh.
Yes, yeah. Well said. And I gotta say, the only two things that I liked in the show, and I'm kind of stretching a bit. One was, even though I didn't like a lot of the imagery, including the robots, the weird compromising positions, the fascist-looking councilman
What,
people.
you don't like butt handles?
I did think that the compositions and like the shadows and light and the colors, they helped tell the story in these kind of interesting ways.
Help tell what story?
And the images themselves kind of told a story, like a single frame. So whoever the animators were, ultimately I thought were pretty talented. And I think this was particularly on display sometime maybe like episode 13 or 15 onward, where a children's book comes into play. And it has these extremely warm, radiant colors in the midst of these otherwise kind of gray and white sort of tones. And thematically, it was kind of cool. The other only positive element to the show for me as a viewer was there's a character named Ikuno who had a promising storyline. And when her...
She's a lesbian, for those of you who don't care.
And when it came up that what it is she felt heartbroken and betrayed and crestfallen and confused by the fact that in this society, you know, these robots were made for boys and girls to power. And she felt like, you know, society has literally and figuratively constructed things in such a way so that I am at a disadvantage. And, you know, no matter how you figure the whole contrived robot thing, it's really dumb. But the way that her story entered in, it seemed like potential for some actual LGBT themes and exploration and discussion. But then, spoiler, she dies.
No, she doesn't.
Oh, she doesn't
well,
die.
Sort of.
Sort of. It's not a great situation.
I mean, a lot of people die. I mean,
but I do appreciate that Zach is the optimist enough of us to look in this sea of confusing, horny garbage
and see this glowing lesbian
Yeah.
in the distance.
and dust it off for it to share with the world.
Oh, and but yeah, you know, ultimately the show, and you know what, something I maybe should have mentioned earlier, I have no problem at all with if in a work of art, if sexuality, sex appeal, sexiness, the portrayal of sex and making love, if it's done in a way that's, you know, in some way meaningful, tasteful, clever. I know this sounds funny, but like funny, if there's actual like there's some artistic merit to it, I can love that. Like I can think that's really powerful or moving. When there's weird excuse making in a like contrived situation and it just feels all pervy and skeevy, that's just gross. And I don't like it, and it made me profoundly uncomfortable. And
That's why I married you.
I love you, honey. And I think if there's just one kind of final note, I mean, before our sort of lightning round at the end, final note, there was one like maybe 10 seconds of the show in I think the first or second episode that I think kind of summarized the show well, which is this creepy looking dude, and he is Dr. Frank, who made the robots.
No, Dr. Franxx with an X.
Oh, Franxx, he is Franxx. Okay, yeah, this show is so dumb. Anyway, Dr. Franxx. Okay, he grabs this girl Anna. He grabs her butt and squeezes it.
I think her name is Nana, like Nana.
He grabs this girl, Nana, whatever. He grabs her butt and squeezes it. And all three of us said, like, ew, gross, or something to that effect. But the scene was played off to actually be, like, funny or sexy or something. And then almost instantly, they're on this escalator, and he's talking to her very seriously. And suddenly, like, there's this very solemn tone to it all. And I feel like that 10 seconds just kind of summarized the show.
It's also a bit incongruous because it's supposed to be like a sexless society.
Right, yeah, that's a really good point.
What's funny, too, is for those who end up watching the whole show, why? Dr. Franxx is described as this guy who lived in normal society with normal sexual love, blah, blah, blah. But he grew past it with all his crazy psychotic research. he didn't even have an interest in humans anymore by like hundreds of years later or whenever the fuck this time is, because they don't give you a timeline. So it's like, okay, so he's not even interested in sex, yet he's grabbing this lady's ass. I think the writers needed to sit down and write it all in one go instead of being like, oh, let's just throw this in here without thinking about the past.
Just trying to pad the scene out, basically. My big problem with this was not what it did differently, the sex bot thing, but towards the end, how absolutely blandly similar it was to almost every other giant robot show with teenage protagonists. All right.
Well, can I guess? Because I only read a little bit about the ending. I'm going to guess that one robot becomes a super robot and either kills the bad guy or kills themselves to kill the bad guy, and everybody else is like, yay, big robot.
That's about it, but it's also a little dumber.
Oh.
How
is it dumber than that?
It's a little dumber. Okay, so you're totally right. Hero and Zero Two, the two series leads, get inside of a gigantic Franxx, which was built by the Klaxosaurs to fight their real enemy, the purple cloud brainless aliens, well, bodiless.
The waveform noise.
Yeah. So they go out into outer space, and it's basically it's Gunbuster. They're out, traveling light speed. All their friends are getting older, and having kids, and missing all their good buddies, and
So everybody else stays on Earth.
Yeah. Okay. And Hero and Zero Two are fused together. He's becoming more alien. Oh, by the way, she's the ship now. She physically turned into the gigantic Frank.
Gotcha.
She's a giant lady flying through space.
I wish you could see my face right now because I literally could not make a sound.
She's a giant lady. Okay.
30-foot woman. Yeah.
So this giant lady who is like the size of a city, who is 02, they finally get to the homeworld of the evil aliens and finally have this all-out battle. But, they're struggling. It's a 11th hour kind of thing, so what happens is all of Hero's friends on Earth get this feeling that suddenly oh no, he needs our help. So they all hold their hands together.
Hold their hands together and pray!
And Link minds across space and give him the attaboy that Hero and Zero Two need to blow up the brainless space aliens.
Oh, that's so bad.
But the process is that they're also exploded too, but their souls are okay, and they're like flying through space with energy, and they're all super happy, and it's miserable.
Oh,
I did see a scene on Tumblr that people like to show of like this little boy and this little girl meeting under a tree, and I'm like, that must be their asses reincarnated.
That's the end.
Yep.
That's the end. Like that shitty Robin Williams movie. That's the end.
Yeah. Oh, What Dreams May Come.
Yes. Nobody wanted to see a What Dreams May Come.
What Dreams May Come
anime.
is called a wet dream.
Yeah. Wet Dreams May Come.
Yep.
All right.
Oh, God.
So, guys, would you recommend Darling in the Franxx?
To who?
Who's this anime for? That is a good point.
Yeah. If you're a skeevy pervert, or if you just like to see anime that just is over the top but not good, absolutely go watch this show. If you want something good, there are so many other shows that have mechs that are good. There are so many other shows that have romance that are good. There are so many other shows who have post-apocalyptic Earth that are good. You don't need it.
Preach it.
You don't need Darling in the Fucks.
Zach?
Hard no.
Hard? Really? Hard no?
Please edit that.
It's unfortunately phrased.
Please edit that.
Probably think it should stick in.
No.
Should go right in there.
No, please.
Rub it all around.
Please
Power
edit
that robot up, Zach.
Oh, please don't leave that in.
That's gold. We're keeping
Oh, please don't.
Solid
Please don't.
gold.
I give this a no. And
You give it a no.
I give it a no. And I gotta say, something else just really kind of bad about the show. Those first 4 or 5 episodes that we watched straight through, they had really terrible world building. Like two lone episodes of shows that I think have really phenomenal world building. One is like pretty much any episode of Star Trek Next Generation, but particularly an episode called The Inner Light. And then probably the best hour of TV I have seen in a long time, which is an episode of Black Mirror called San Junipero. Those like isolated stories were so good, and the world building was textbook. Like, it was like, this is what you watch to see good world building.
And it only took about an hour.
Yeah, if that. And then I feel like if you wanted to just see like a 25-minute example of bad world building, then watch the first episode of Darling in the Franxx, and you don't need to see it.
For me, I judge anime by how it makes me feel by the time I'm done watching it. And, you know, we're going back to JoJo again. I watch the end of each season of JoJo, and I'm, like, kind of happy and like, oh, okay, that's fun. Where's this going to go next? Even, you know, and I felt miserable and drained at the end of this. Not just because I marathoned it, but because it's a miserable, joyless, predictable thing.
Yeah. And, you know, and we're people who, if something is miserable and joyless, but it's done well, like, we're not going to, you know, dump on it. This was just bad. Yeah, it was the 13 Reasons Why of cartoons.
I've done marathons. I've done marathons of good things. I've done marathons of bad things. This was just to get it out of my head. When I was in high school, I had kids telling me, oh, Paige, read Twilight. That's a great idea. You're going to love it. I start to read it, and I'm like, oh, Jesus, fuck. So then I'm like, okay, well, now I have to finish it. And they're like, wait, no, it's 4 books. And I'm like, okay, the only way to get me to not think about this ever again is to read all 4 fucking books in one go and just drop it out of my life. And that is Darling in the Franxx.
So basically, its gimmick, while it is weird and off-putting, is not enough to sustain interest in a 23-episode series.
If you want a gimmick, watch Kill la Kill. I mean, I don't even like Kill la Kill, but it is much better than this.
I'd rather watch Kill la Kill than Darling in the Franxx.
And I just want to watch JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. Yeah.
My friend, we will.
Awesome. Looking forward to it.
Okay, so I guess this is about it for us. Thank you for tuning in. We'll see you guys next time. Feel free to comment and contact us at email for Schmucks if you have suggestions for something you might like to watch in the future. Thank you, and have a wonderful day.
Bye, guys.